Energy into Form, Part 1.
The truth about sexual energy, desire, and power.
Most people are taught to think about sex in one of two ways: as something to chase blindly, or as something to suppress and feel guilty about. Culture pulls you back and forth between indulgence and shame. Advertising tells you to overstimulate it. Religion and certain spiritual scenes tell you to fear it. Rarely does anyone sit you down and say, calmly, "This is a form of raw life energy, and you can direct it." Napoleon Hill, in Think and Grow Rich, wrote that the men he studied who achieved extraordinary results had one thing in common: an unusually strong sexual nature that they learned to rechannel into their work, inventions, art, or leadership. He called this sex transmutation. Mitch Horowitz revisits that idea in The Sixth Sense, but instead of wrapping it in mystical fog, he tries to distill what is actually useful. You can't and shouldn't try to kill desire, but you can learn to aim it. To understand how, you have to begin with biology, not mysticism. Sexual arousal is not just an idea. It's a whole body event. Hormones shift. Testosterone, estrogen, dopamine, oxytocin, adrenaline, and other chemicals rise and fall. Heart rate increases. Attention narrows. The brain tags whatever you're focusing on as high value. That is the key. When you are sexually stimulated, your nervous system temporarily treats your focus as extremely important. If all that focus collapses into a few minutes of scrolling and release, the energy is used, but it is used in the smallest possible container. The system spikes, then crashes. Hill's insight, and Horowitz's refinement of it, is not "never have sex" or "semen is magic." It is much simpler and more serious. When you are sexually charged, your mind is in a state of high energy and narrow focus. If you can capture that state before it collapses into automatic behavior, you can direct it into something else: writing, training, business building, study, creativity, problem solving. That redirection is sex transmutation in the practical sense. The problem is that this idea has been hijacked. On one side, you have porn-saturated culture where energy is sprayed in all directions and never built into anything. On the other side, you have online NoFap cults, full of absolutist rules and shame campaigns, telling people that any sexual expression is weakness. Both extremes miss the point. Horowitz is explicit about this. Transmutation is not the same as repression. There are times when physical expression is sane, healthy, and essential. Cutting yourself off from all sexual release can backfire, creating tension, rage, obsession, or a sense of failure every time you slip. An energy you don't know how to work with becomes an energy that works against you. The aim is balance, not wasting it on compulsive habits, but not turning it into an internal prison either.
To see this clearly, imagine 3 archetypes.
The first is the person of indulgence. Whenever sexual energy rises, they automatically reach for porn, casual stimulation, or any available outlet. It's not a conscious choice, it's a reflex. Their nervous system has been trained like a dog. Arousal equals immediate gratification. In the short term, this feels like freedom, but over time, it flattens motivation. The brain learns that the highest reward is a quick jolt with no effort. Demanding goals, art, business, deep study, spiritual practice, start to feel dull and heavy compared to the constant buffet of fantasy. The second archetype is the person of repression. They've absorbed the idea that sex is dirty, low, unspiritual. They try to shut down desire whenever it appears. They aim for purity, by pretending they are above the body. In practice, this usually produces hypocrisy or internal war. On the surface, they play the role of the pure one. Underneath, their suppressed desires leak out sideways as anger, judgment, secret habits, or emotional instability. You can recognize this pattern in movements where public moralizing about sex is loudest and scandals are most frequent. The third archetype is the person of transmutation. When desire rises, they notice it. They don't panic. They don't instantly indulge. They also don't pretend it isn't there. They see it as a surge of available power, and then they ask a simple question: where is this going to go? Sometimes the answer is into sexual expression with a partner, into loving physical connection, into healthy self-release. But often the answer is into something I am building. That something I am building is the center of this whole idea. Transmutation is pointless without a direction. A vague wish like, I want to be successful, will not hold your energy when you are alone at midnight with your phone. The body responds to specifics. I am writing a book. I am building a business that frees me from this job. I am training my body to peak performance. I am developing real spiritual focus through daily practice. When the aim is clear, you can capture the charge of desire and convert it into drive. The basic mechanism looks like this. Arousal appears. Normally, you would follow the script: fantasy, stimulation, release, crash. In transmutation, you interrupt the script between fantasy and stimulation. You take a few deep breaths, you pull your attention away from the screen or the story, and you transfer it directly onto a specific, meaningful task. You sit at the page, you open the design program, you put your shoes on and go train. You shift from consuming to creating. If you do this once, nothing in your life changes. If you do it occasionally, you feel good about yourself, but the patterns don't really move. If you do it repeatedly, with structure and measurement, you can literally feel your relationship with your own body shifting. Desire stops being only about discharge. It becomes a cue for action. This is where we must be brutally honest. This work will bring up resistance. It will expose how often you use sexual release as a way to avoid feelings, boredom, loneliness, anxiety, inadequacy. It will show you how much you rely on the dopamine spike of instant gratification when life feels hard. It will also show you where spiritual purity is just a cover for self-hatred.
This is why, as with everything else in the sixth sense, method is the differentiator. The only way to know whether sex transmutation is useful for you is not to argue about it on the internet, but to run an experiment and track outcomes.
So we will build protocols. We will decide in advance when we are redirecting and when we are not. We will pick metrics: words written, hours studied, training sessions completed, sales calls made, creative blocks finished. We will run 30 days and compare periods of transmutation with periods of normal behavior. We will look at the data. Before we get to the protocol, we need to talk about something that almost no one includes in the conversation: ethics and relationships.
If you are in a partnership, your approach to sexual energy affects another human being. Transmutation is not an excuse to withdraw from intimacy or punish your partner with celibacy in the name of growth. If anything, a mature understanding of this energy should deepen sexual connection, not dry it up. You can choose to occasionally redirect your charge into work or spiritual practice without making your partner feel rejected or starved. That requires communication, honesty, and care.
On the other side, if you are single, This work will push you to confront how much of your sex life is happening with pixels and imagination versus real bodies and real relationships. There is no moral sermon here, just a fact. The nervous system treats repetitive, high-intensity artificial stimuli differently from the slower, more complex reality of relating with another person. Part of transmutation may involve gradually stepping away from the most numbing patterns so that your attention and sensitivity can return.
In this light, sex transmutation is not a trick for manifesting riches through abstinence. It is a training in agency. It is the art of deciding where your strongest energies go, instead of handing that decision to habit, algorithm, or shame.
In Part 2, we will turn all this theory into a daily practice, concrete steps, defined time windows, and measurable outcomes. We will explore both the risks and the rewards of deliberately directing sexual energy into creation. And we will keep the same rule we have used with remote viewing and autosuggestion. If it cannot survive 30 days of honest tracking, it doesn't deserve your belief. That is how you keep this work clean. That is how you keep your power and your sanity at the same time.
Energy into Form, Part 2.
Protocols, experiments, and turning desire into drive.
If we strip the romance out of it, sex transmutation comes down to one disciplined move. When your system is charging up, you choose where the surplus goes. You don't try to stop energy. You steer it. To do that without lying to yourself, you need 3 things: a clear aim, a simple protocol, and a way to measure the results. Start with aim. Pick one domain of your life that would undeniably benefit from more drive and consistency. Writing, study, business building, strength training, musical practice, deep spiritual work. Be concrete. I want to be more productive is blurry. I want to write 1,000 words per day for the next 30 days is specific. Transmutation works best when energy has somewhere precise to land. Next, understand your current pattern. For 1 week, before changing anything, carry a small notebook or use a discrete notes app. Every time you feel significant sexual arousal, whether triggered by a person, memory, fantasy, or screen, make a brief note. Time, trigger, what you did with it. No judgment, no attempts to fix it. You're mapping your own circuitry.
At the end of 7 days, look at your log. You will probably see clusters. Late at night, alone with your phone, certain times of day when boredom peaks, particular emotional states like rejection, stress, or loneliness. This is your baseline. This is the raw pattern you're going to work with.
Now you design the transmutation window. Choose one repeating situation from your log where the pattern is strongest, perhaps late-night scrolling, or that mid-afternoon slump where you routinely drift into erotic fantasy. Commit that. For the next 30 days, this specific window will become your transmutation practice.
Here is the basic protocol. When you feel arousal rising in that designated window, you pause. You do not immediately open a porn site or start chasing stimulation. You do not also clamp down in panic. You acknowledge the energy. You take 10 slow, deep breaths, feeling the charge in your body without acting on it. Then you deliberately shift your attention to your chosen task and begin doing it, right there, right then.
If your aim is writing, you open the document and start typing. If it is training, you put your shoes on and go outside or into your space and start moving. If it is study, you open the book or the course and work through a section. The key is immediacy. You must connect the wave of energy to the action quickly enough that your brain begins to associate arousal with creative or constructive behavior, not just discharge.
You do not swear off all sexual release. You simply decide that in this one window, for these 30 days, at least some of your rising energy will be harvested and redirected into form.
This is where Horowitz's caveat matters. Sometimes physical expression is essential. Trying to constantly dam the river can damage the banks. If you find that the protocol is making you chronically irritable, unable to concentrate, or harsh with others, you may be trying to convert more energy than your current stability can handle. In that case, adjust. Decide that on some days, after an honest period of transmuted effort, you will allow yourself healthy, intentional release. You're not failing. You're finding your range. To make this an experiment rather than a vague attempt, you need metrics. For the same 30 days, track 1 or 2 specific outputs closely linked to your aim. If you're a writer, log words written or pages completed. If you're building a side business, log calls made, products built, or key tasks completed. If you're training, log sessions and progression. Alongside this, track your general mood and sense of self-respect on a simple 1 to 10 scale at the end of each day.
Now you have a structure. On designated arousal events, you breathe, redirect, and act. At night, you record what you actually did. After 30 days, you can ask harsh but fair questions. Did my output change? Did the number of empty, compulsive releases drop? Did my mood levels improve, worsen, or stay the same? Did I feel more in charge of my energy? Or did I feel constantly pent up and agitated?
This is where the honesty test sits. If you notice a significant increase in meaningful work or training with only moderate strain, then the practice is working. If you see no change in output, but a large increase in frustration, then what you have built is not transmutation, but a private prison. That is not the point. You may need a softer initial protocol or a different variable to work on. One useful variation is the 1 in 3 rule. For every 3 strong waves of arousal you experience in the designated window, you commit to transmuting at least 1 and allowing healthy sexual expression in the others. This avoids the all-or-nothing trap and still retrains the system. Over time, as your capacity grows, you can adjust the ratio. It is also vital to understand the psychological layer. Many people use sexual release as a regulator for emotion. When they feel anxious, lonely, rejected, or bored, the quickest way to drown that feeling is a dopamine spike. When you begin to redirect that pattern, the underlying feelings surface. This can be confronting. You may suddenly experience a wave of sadness or restlessness when you choose not to autopilot into stimulation. That doesn't mean the method is harming you. It means you're finally feeling what the habit was muting. In those moments, your job is not to become a hero. It is to become honest. You might say to yourself, "Right now I feel lonely. Normally, I would go numb this. Instead, I'm going to acknowledge the loneliness, and then I'm going to use this energy to make something, or to move my body, or to take one concrete step towards changing the situation that makes me feel this way." This is mature transmutation, not pretending you're above your feelings, but refusing to let them dictate your actions.
Energy into form means exactly that. The raw impulses that once disappeared into a glowing screen or a quick fantasy begin to appear in your life as pages, projects, strength, competence, and ironically, deeper capacity for real intimacy.
But again, none of this is to be taken as doctrine. It is an experiment. You are not holier if you do this, and you are not a failure if it doesn't work. You are simply learning what kind of relationship your nervous system can have with its own power.
One more critical aspect rarely discussed: what happens when you succeed? When you genuinely start to feel more powerful, more focused, more in control of your desires. There is a subtle danger here: ego inflation. You may begin to look down on others who are still stuck in patterns you've partially escaped. You may start to spiritualize your discipline and turn it into a new identity. I am the ascetic. I am the one who doesn't waste energy. I am better.
This is where you can quietly destroy what you've built. Because the whole point of reclaiming your energy is to become more creative, more loving, more effective, not more self-righteous. The moment your practice becomes a way to feel superior, the energy twists. It no longer flows cleanly into form. It coils back into the small self. Guard against that. Stay clinical. Stay curious. Remember, you are working with a force that is older than you, older than civilization, older than any ideology. In intimate relationships, this practice can bear rich fruit if handled with respect. When you learn to hold arousal without instantly needing to discharge it, you can be more present with your partner. You can feel the energy and let it circulate through touch, eye contact, breath, and play, instead of racing towards the finish line. Transmutation, in this sense, doesn't mean withholding pleasure. It means expanding the range of what counts as pleasure. Presence becomes a form of eroticism. Shared focus becomes a kind of electricity. There will be times, too, when the most skillful thing you can do is to not transmute at all, to let go fully, to surrender into physical expression with someone you love, or even on your own, without guilt. The difference is that, after this work, that choice will be conscious, not automatic. You will know the cost and the benefit, and you will choose what is right for that moment. By now, you may notice the pattern that links everything Mitch Horowitz is serious about. Whether the topic is remote viewing, auto-suggestion, or sexual energy, the formula is the same. Take an old, controversial claim. Strip away superstition and moralism. Design methods. Run experiments. Keep a diary. Evaluate honestly. If the effect survives 30 days of structured practice and measurement, keep it in your toolkit. If it doesn't, drop it or refine it. Your life is too short to waste on untested beliefs. So, for the next 30 days, if you choose, let sexual energy become a signal. When it rises, instead of treating it as an emergency or a toy, treat it as a question. What do I want this to become? A scene on a screen that you forget in 10 minutes? Or a chapter, a training session, a new client, a breakthrough in your craft, a deeper meditation, a better conversation, a repaired relationship? You do not have to answer that question perfectly. You only have to start answering it more consciously than you did before. That is sex transmutation in its cleanest form. Not superstition, not pride, not shame. Just the daily decision to turn energy into something worthy of the power that produced it. Nothing here asks for suppression or indulgence, only choice. If this shifted how you relate to desire and power, stay with Positive Vortex. We'll build what this energy is capable of becoming.